Hello YouTube, it's Emma Blue Eyes 10 here and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Etiquette episode 14, and I do hope you guys enjoy. Today's lesson is going to be on assumptions. Now there are two sides of this that I'm going to discuss. The first side is the assumption of card effects and the other side is the assumption of what the opponent is going to do. So I hope you find this useful and I hope you enjoy. Now, assumption of card effects is basically as it sounds. You assume a card effect and try to put it through, and it ends up not being what it actually says on the card. Now, we're all guilty of this, everybody does it, I've done it, I'm really bad at it. I did it quite a bit in the Lord of the Taxion Galaxy sneak peek. I would play a card and assume its effect without fully reading the card, and that obviously led to a lot of misplays, mistakes, and me having to rethink strategies and everything. But said, everybody does it, it can happen to anybody basically. The best way to get around assuming card effects is to make sure you read the card fully first before you do your move. This kind of ties in with my read thine cards etiquette video that I did, because it is quite one of the common sources of misplays. You know, some people will see some cards online, or they'll see cards being played and they get it eventually, and they think from watching others they know the card effect fully and play it without reading it fully themselves. I mean, again, as I said, I'm guilty of doing it. I've done it quite a few times. You know, it just happens, unfortunately, especially if it's in the heat of the moment. Sometimes you can completely forget to read card effects properly and everything, and try and assume a card does one effect when it actually does another effect. The best way, of course, as I said, to do that is just to read the card properly. Make sure you read all your cards properly and thoroughly before you play your move. If the opponent notices you're making a mistake by assuming card effects, most of the time they will let you know. Other times they probably won't, depending, but it's the best way to avoid mistakes and misplays and everything. And I highly doubt this would really happen, but some people can take it to extremes and actually say you're cheating if you assume card effects, especially in official tournaments and, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Events and everything, and that's something, you know, nobody wants to be called as a cheater for assuming. If it's a genuine mistake, you know, for assuming card effects, nobody wants to be called that. Now, for the assumption of what the opponent is going to do, again, quite a lot of people do this. I'm guilty of doing it myself. Thinking ahead of the opponent there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good way to be prepared for what they might plan to do in their turn and everything. But reading too much into a move or trying to think too far ahead can obviously cause you to misplay, make mistakes, or even throw you off if the opponent decides to throw you a loophole. And again, I've been guilty of doing this. I've read too much into a move, especially with some standard meta decks, like, well, not standard meta decks, like most meta decks have like a standard built strategy, and you can often expect that strategy to be repeated a couple of times within a duel. And there's been a couple of times where I've assumed that strategy of some decks will go off and it turns out to be something completely different, and it threw me off and I ended up playing moves that shouldn't have been done when I actually had a better way to counter it without actually fully realising it, because the move that they did threw me off and I'm like, oh gosh, what am I going to do now? You know, I've been completely thrown off and I don't see the options I have on the field or on my hand to get around that problem, and because I assumed the opponent was going to do something else and I read far too much into his or her moves. The best way to avoid that kind of thing is obviously just to keep still, keep quiet, watch what the opponent's doing. Obviously if they're doing a misplay or cheating or doing something wrong, then obviously you've got the right to say whatever it is you need to say about that, but the best way to do it is just to let the opponent get his move along, answer his questions if he asks any questions, you know, like is it okay to pull this through or put that through or whatever, and let the move play through. And then once it's played through, then you can look at the field, look at your hand, look at all the options you've got, and then counter it. Again, as I said, thinking ahead of the opponent or trying to judge of what they might do, there's nothing wrong with that. It helps you prepare for the next turn or next move that they're going to do. But again, if you read too much into it, it can throw you off and you might not see an option that could help you win the game or even get around that situation. Anyway guys, that's it for Yu-Gi-Oh! Etiquette episode 14. I hope you guys enjoyed. Take care and we'll see you guys later. Bye!